Welcome to Down to Business with V, a show dedicated to bringing you actionable information to help protect you, your families, your businesses, and the community. I'm your host V, and today we're discussing the human firewall and its impacts on small businesses. I've called in a cybersecurity expert to help give you tips to keep your small business and your community secure. And as always, we'll show you what to do if you're a victim of fraud. Let's get down to business.
From Atlanta, Georgia, to becoming a United States Marine, to Washington, D.C., and every place in between, everybody calls me V. My goal is to bring you resources, education, and knowledge from sources you can trust that informs and protects to safeguard our families, our businesses, and the community. Now let's get down to business.
Welcome to Down to Business with V. I'm your host V, and today we're discussing the human firewall and its impact on small businesses. We have in the studio with us today to shed light on the subject, cybersecurity expert Laura Baker. Laura is the co-founder and executive director of Cyber Wyoming and president of the Cyber Wyoming Alliance, which comprises of multiple programs designed to help average citizens and Wyoming companies to manage their security risks. Programs include Wyoming's Cybersecurity Competition for Small Business, which we'll be talking about today, and an apprenticeship program for tech professionals. Other citizens programs include a weekly publication called The Hacker's Brief, Senior Fraud Alert Flyers, and the annual Cybersecurity Conference. Laura also runs a school cyber safety video challenge. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you for having me on today, V.
Thank you so much for being with us. Laura, a lot of times small businesses think that they're, sort of immune to cybersecurity risks and, what's happening on the global cybersecurity landscape, because a lot of the attacks that we hear about are happening to larger corporations. So let's talk today a little bit about some of the risks that small businesses are facing and how Cyber Wyoming and the Cyber Wyoming Alliance are helping tackle that.
Absolutely. Small businesses, I hear this all the time when I talk to people in Wyoming, and we're pretty rural. We're the smallest state in the nation. So we have a lot of small businesses that are sole proprietors, or maybe 3 people, a mom and pop shop, or even less than 10 people, and maybe 5 or 6 computers. They think that they're immune to cyber attacks primarily because they are so small, and they think, who would want our stuff? But the thing is, it's not that you're small, it's whether or not the hacker can get in and what their payload might be once they do get in. And a lot of these small businesses, they've grown over time. They could be, maybe they were multi-generational and they've been going for 50 years and they've added on to their network. And, 50 years ago, they didn't even have a network or a computer. But today they probably have multiple shops, 20 or 30 people back in the back working on a machining shop, for instance, or welding. And then they have 3 or 4 office workers up front. And those are just as at risk as any large corporation, primarily just because they may not even know what they have for their networking equipment.
Absolutely. And, like you said, these companies in some cases have grown over time. Even with new and emerging companies, there is value to the network, the client list, the internal employee list. Hackers and malicious actors target different things for different reasons. So all of us should be thinking about this, and I love that you're bringing awareness to it through the Cybersecurity Challenge. So let's talk about the concept of the human firewall. And for those that might not know what a firewall is, we can start with the brick and mortar kind. The firewall keeps a fire contained or from spreading or from getting in. Let's talk about it from a cybersecurity perspective. For those that might not know what a firewall is, let's talk about it and then share how this competition is creating the human firewall.
Great. So a firewall, there's a couple of different kinds. There's a software firewall that's on your PC. If you're a Windows user, it's called Windows Defender, and it protects your things getting into your computer. But if you're at a business, you really need a hardware firewall, and that's just a black box that looks a lot like, a switch or a router or anything, or your computer, your desktop computer, and it constantly updates with threats that are out there worldwide from whatever firewall company you bought it from. And there's multiple brands out there. But small businesses often don't have a firewall because the internet service provider came in, gave them their cable modem and their wireless router, and they're like, okay, I'm done. I don't need anything else, because they think, well, their internet service provider set them up. I've got connection. I'm probably secure. They know what they're doing, and we'll move on. But unless they specifically ask for a firewall, they don't usually have one.
Yeah, it's very true. And so this cybersecurity, the competition that you're running, it's called the Wyoming's Small Business Cybersecurity Competition. Is that correct?
Yes.
Please tell us what you're doing there and how you are engaging professionals. Because this program, from what I understand, is not for cybersecurity professionals.
Not at all. No, not at all. And that's what you mentioned the human firewall. That's what we're trying to build, is that human firewall. We're taking office managers, HR managers, business owners, anybody that they have. Sometimes it's just the receptionist at a medical office. And we're training them to manage their risks. We're helping them redefine their team. We're helping them with the language, because tech language is really different. If you ask a tech person what AD is, A as in apple, D as in dog, they say Active Directory. But the rest of us in the world say, oh, it's 2022 AD. That's our era. So, the language itself is a barrier. And then when you take into account that 83.3% of the tech industry is comprised of white males, and over a third of businesses in Wyoming are owned by females, we've also got the language, the gender language gap. So it's like, if it's a woman-owned business, for instance, they not only have to learn Spanish, but they also have to learn French in order to understand how to manage their cybersecurity risks. Well, that is a huge barrier. So instead of asking them to learn Spanish and French, we ask them to learn a little bit about organizational behavior, culture. We help them create their policies. But the first thing that we start with is, how do you feel about the word cybersecurity? And guess what they usually say?
What's that?
They usually say, it makes me super nervous. I'm not at all confident. And that right there tells you that we have this barrier that we've created in the tech industry, and we need to get over that. And the only way to get over it is to use behavioral change principles, whether you call it organizational behavior or social work. Our program is based on social work principles of behavior change, so that we can get them over to that hump, so they're feeling confident with the subject. Yeah. And once they get into it, they realize, this isn't that hard. I don't know why I was afraid of it.
Absolutely. And Laura, you know what I love is that the program is for everybody within the organization. It's not just your tech people that are supposed to understand how to protect your organization. It's everybody in the organization. I had a conversation several months back with someone in a billion-dollar organization, and their argument was that their frontline employees did not need to know that information. They do. They do. Everybody, top to bottom, inside and out, in every parameter of that organization needs to know how to protect the organization from internal and external threats, and then what those look like, how to identify them, and then how to effectively respond to them. So tell us, in the few minutes we have before we go to break, give us an idea of the cybersecurity competition and what you are hoping to achieve with those frontline professionals. What does it look like as you're running through it with them?
Well, it's a high-touch training program that goes from February through mid-August. And it's really, truly, we call ourselves cybersecurity business counselors, because we walk them through this risk management process. And the very first thing we do is that survey to ask them how they feel about managing this and getting into this program. The second thing we ask them is to bring their mission statement, and we map their security goals to it. So already we're speaking their language. They have their mission statement. We create a security vision. We create their goals. And then we do we don't call it an assessment, but it's a current situation analysis. Assessment is too intimidating. And we do this analysis, and it brings back a report for them, as well as the start on their inventory. And then we start working towards their goals. And that inventory is most enlightening, but I think we'll probably want to talk about that in the next segment because there's quite a bit there.
Absolutely. Laura, I'm already excited about this because when you said that it was the secretary and the receptionist and everybody in between getting this information, you touched a string in my heart. So when we come back, we're going to hear more about the small business cybersecurity competition that Laura's Cyber Wyoming and the Cyber Wyoming Alliance run. And we're going to hear how you might be able to bring this technology, this interaction to your region to help your communities. We'll be right back after this.
Every organization is responsible for ensuring cybersecurity. The ability to protect its information systems from impairment or even theft is essential to success. Implementing effective security measures will not only offer liability protection, it will also increase efficiency and productivity. With our cybersecurity workshop, your participants will understand the different types of malware and security breaches. Develop effective prevention methods which will increase overall security. They'll also understand the basic concepts associated with cybersecurity and what a company needs to stay secure.
Find out more about training for you and your organization at vicargroup.com.
Welcome back to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and today we're discussing the human firewall and its impact on small businesses. I have in the studio with me via Zoom today cybersecurity expert Laura Baker. Laura is the co-founder and executive director of Cyber Wyoming and president of the Cyber Wyoming Alliance. Welcome back, Laura.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And Laura, for those that are just joining us, please give our audience a brief recap of what we've been discussing surrounding the Cybersecurity Small Business Challenge.
We've been discussing Wyoming cybersecurity competition for small businesses, and it is a high-touch program that runs from February to August. Small business leaders, whoever they assign to it, whether it's the receptionist or the actual business owner, they usually end up spending anywhere from 20 to 30 hours for that entire semester, I'll call it, or program time. And they end up feeling a lot more confident about managing their cybersecurity risks. They know what questions to ask their team. They've defined their team. And it's just become a really great program. We're in our fifth year in 2022. 2023 will be our sixth year. And we've learned a lot about incorporating caseworker principles of behavior that you would see in the social work department at any university, and psychology. And we use those with language that is business friendly to help them get over that hump of cybersecurity. I was thinking last night how cybersecurity is like that annoying fly. It buzzes around your head and you shoot away a little bit. And then eventually you're like, I've got to get up and get that fly swatter and get that fly because it's going to drive me crazy. That's exactly how most people feel about cybersecurity and managing it for their business when they're in that small business arena without any IT help. And so the people that are joining the competition, they're the ones that pick up that fly swatter.
That's right. I love that analogy. I love it. And I love that the program that you've developed trains any employee at any level within the organization to be able to identify risks and properly respond to them. When I said before, it touches on my heartstrings, it touches on my heartstrings because if there is one person in the organization that doesn't know how to respond, that's your weakest link. And that's how malicious actors will get in, if we're not careful. So kudos on you and like, wow, for creating this program for small business owners. So if you would take us a little more in depth into what the program entails, how the curriculum is played out. I know you said that it's about 20 to 30 hours. tell us a little more about how that time is spent, and then some of the feedback you've gotten from participants.
Sure. So as I've said before, we start out with a survey to see how they feel about cybersecurity. Then we work their security goals into their mission and develop that. The next stage after the assessment, but we don't call it that because it's unfriendly, is we help them work the inventory. So a lot of small business owners, maybe they're 2 or 3 people and they have everything in the cloud. And when they list all of their cloud systems and all the cloud apps that they have, they're usually pretty shocked. And they realize that if they had one person turnover, they might actually lose access to a system because especially if it's a sudden death situation or something horrible like that. So they start immediately as going through their inventory. It's a real aha moment for them. They learn what the internet service provider installed in their business and what gaps they might need to fill on their own. For instance, the ISP might have just put in a cable modem and a wireless router, but not a firewall. And so they probably need to go buy a firewall. But it's not an expensive, that sounds expensive to a lot of small business owners, but really you can get a small business firewall for a couple $100. So it's not like it has to be, thousands of dollars of investment. And we make sure that that's really clear as we go through the program. And then, so once we finish the inventory, then by then they've really kind of thought, oh, this is what I have. This is what I'm missing. And here's what I want to do to mitigate it. And that's when, according to social work principles, we're providing them instances where they can have a success rate. They are successful at what they're doing. Experiences of success. And now they're gaining confidence. And so now they're ready to write their policies. And normally for a small business like that with 10 people or less, they basically need an administrative policy. Here's what we're going to do behind the scenes that the average employee doesn't necessarily need to know. They need to know that we have backups going and they shouldn't mess with them, but they don't necessarily need to know how the backups are running, that they're offsite, that there's onsite, and there's a copy at the accountant's office as well. But the manager of that business needs to know that. And so we have an administrative side policy, and we boiled our policies down from the big standards, the SANS Institute and the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. We boiled all those down to what these really micro businesses need. And then the next policy we run is we help them write as their employee policy. And the final one is the incident response plan. And so that employee response policy is primarily for what are the employees responsible, and it's primarily information protection and learning about phishing. If you've got those 2 things, I know not to put this spreadsheet out on this Google Drive, for instance, because it's got social security numbers and it's not password protected or encrypted. If employees know that, that's half the battle. It's all about user access and understanding what information is considered sensitive. And then the incident response plan is the final thing that we do with them. And that's primarily who, what, when, where, why, and how. We use the journalism model. So we think of every horrible scenario that could happen. And then we go through who, what, why, where, when, and how. And how are they going to recover is the biggest one, of course. But, who's in charge of what is a big one too. And what data is on that network attached storage drive, or what data is out on their Google Drive. What happens if they lose access? Let's say they're a legal office or a lawyer, and they have a subscription to legal software up in the cloud. What happens if they lose access to that for 2 weeks because that company got hit? How are they going to manage and continue on with their business? So there's a lot of discussions that we have there, and we just walk them through it. But by the time we hit those policies, they've already gotten their brain kind of, oh, now I understand. Here's what I want to do.
That's pretty awesome, Laura, and detailed and thorough. I love it. And I love that, these frontline employees are getting to see things that generally are only shown to, the tech side of the house, the IT professional, that we're looking actually to push out to everybody in the organization. But I love that you're bringing in everybody in the organization so they have the opportunity to participate and learn about these things. Laura, can you tell us some of the feedback that you got? I know that you said the program is organizational behavior based, and you're looking to change behavior, which is key in rolling out any type of program, specifically a cybersecurity program. Tell us what some of the participants shared as they graduated the program or completed the program and how they felt versus when they came in.
Well, when they first come in, they feel pretty alone and they're nervous about the subject of cybersecurity and managing it. And there are a lot of them, if the business owner, for instance, said, hey, you're going to do this, so-and-so, we'll just call them Jane. Hey, Jane, you're going to do this. Jane's usually like starstruck, like, what did this person get me into? You know? And so they're usually a little shell shocked and not quite sure what they're going to do and nervous that we're going to give them a whole bunch of tech speak. They get over that feeling pretty quick when we ask them to bring their mission and we start talking about their mission and security and translating it to security goals. But by the end of the competition, they are really excited to work on those judges' reports with us because they've seen how far they've come. You know, they started with nothing, and now they know they have a firewall, and they have a more homogeneous environment for their computers. Maybe they bought some antivirus software, but not on top of that, they have their policies that they wrote, and they have a training program. And the training program that we provide to them is a no-think training program. It's got a poster, a couple of emails to send throughout the month, a game, and a video. And I would not be surprised if the Down to Business videos make our next version of that.
I love it.
But I had a 21-year-old intern put this together for me, and I said, don't put anything in there that you don't think is entertaining. And so he went out and found all of this great material that's free nationwide, and we cherry picked from different programs and put this together so that whoever that receptionist or office manager or business leader is, they can hang that poster at the beginning of the month, send out an email announcing the topic, have a game at the next staff meeting, send out a couple more emails, and then have a video at the final staff meeting with a discussion. And that is how the culture changes. It's quick 2 to 10 minute videos, 2 to 10 minute trainings to raise that overall level of cultural awareness.
I love it. I love it. Quick, easy, and fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you implement change. That's how you do it. And with simple language, I love it. And I love that you've made it where it's a no-think program. They don't even have to think about it. I love it. Absolutely amazing. So Laura, in the few minutes that we have remaining, if there is an organization that has been a victim of a data breach or any type of fraud regarding cybersecurity or information security, what would you recommend that they do and steps that they can take?
Well, the first thing that what a Better Business Bureau report actually said was that most business owners think the first thing they need to do is notify their customers. Don't do that. The first thing you need to do is call your attorney, your insurance agent, and local law enforcement. If you're a victim of fraud as a business, they will walk you through the process. The local law enforcement in Wyoming, they most likely refer you to the FBI office here in the region. And you can file a complaint with the ic3.gov, which is the FBI's Internet Complaint Center. They also have your local attorney general's office might be able to help you a little bit. They might have some small business advocacy groups. And then if you are being impersonated, let's say that you have a website with a capital I in it, and somebody goes out and buys a website domain with a little L in it, so it looks just like yours in certain fonts and type, and you're being impersonated and they've actually copied and said that they are you, definitely report it to the Federal Trade Commission. They have a online reporting, and they can, if the server that it's being run on is in the US, they can shut it down.
I love it. Great advice, Laura. Great advice. We are so excited about all of the work that you're doing with Cyber Wyoming, the Cyber Wyoming Alliance. And Laura, I know this program that you've done for the small businesses and the competition, this program is also one that you're looking to take to other regions if other regions are interested. Tell them how they can obtain this program to run and help protect businesses in their area.
Yes, we were awarded a Gulatech Foundation grant in February, and it was really exciting for us because we really wanted the money to expand the program to local areas that don't have it. So we actually have developed a online learning portal, and we've developed an on-the-job training program to help people become cybersecurity business counselors in other economic development agencies across the state. So if your Chamber of Commerce is really active and has a low turnover rate, we will train you to do this, and you can offer it as an additional service to your members, which would be a fabulous. If you have a women's business center, this would be a great opportunity for them too. And so what we're hoping is that it'll expand existing economic development agency services.
I'm super excited about it. Laura Baker, co-founder and executive director and president of Cyber Wyoming Alliance and Cyber Wyoming. It's a mouthful, Laura. Thank you so much for being with us today and for all of the great work that you're doing. I am ecstatic over it. Kudos to you and your team. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for joining us as well. Thank you to our guest, Laura Baker, co-founder and executive director of Cyber Wyoming and president of the Cyber Wyoming Alliance. Thank you for your expertise and all that you've shared with us today. And if you have been a victim of cybercrime, a data breach, or fraud of any type, reach out to your local police department and contact the FBI at ic3.gov. I'd like to thank our sponsor today, Vicar Group. You can visit them at vicargroup.com. They are business consultants for Generation U. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you have show ideas, or if you'd like to sponsor the show, reach out to us at info@dtbwithv.com. I'd like to thank, last but not least, all of you for watching and our wonderful crew that makes this show happen every week. I'd like to thank Hannah, Eric, Peter, Stephen, Doug, and Suzanne for making the show possible. We couldn't do it without you. This is Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and we'll see you next time.